much money do you think you need to get started in property? A lot of people out there spend their time worrying about accumulating enough money to get on the property ladder. So how much money is enough to get you started? This question has been posed to me by many people on numerous occasions. So I thought finally it's time to address it. Something that you're going to realize though is that it's not all about the amount of money you need to invest, but rather, and more importantly, how you invest it. I want to impart to you the wisdom of investing in property based on my own experience. For now, I don't think you need to worry about the traditional method of property investing where you require a pretty hefty deposit to invest and buy a property. And that's because I'm going to be letting you in on other ways where you don't need a lot of cash, if any. Now, you'll know as well as I do, prices vary in different areas of the UK, but for the sake of keeping things simple, because simplicity is good and I like simple, let's take an example of a £200,000 property, and it's a buy-to-let property, so it's not your own home, you're not going to live in it, but rather one that you're going to rent out. And the aim of the game, of course, is that this property should generate you a profit and a monthly cash flow. And by purchasing enough rental properties, you can have sufficient positive monthly cash flow to replace your day job and your income, meaning you can quit whatever day job you have. And you can finally hand in that resignation letter that you've drafted and saved for far too long. Please allow me to break down the basic maths behind purchasing a property. Remember, in any case, getting a mortgage involves borrowing other people's money. So even if it's a bank or an institutional lender or wherever you're getting money from, that money belongs to somebody somewhere. And you can obtain up to 75% loan to value by getting a mortgage from a bank or another lender. So using the earlier example, if a property is worth £200,000, you can get up to 75% loan to value, which means you can raise up to £150,000 by way of mortgage. And that means you must find a £50,000 deposit. See, I did say I'll keep the numbers easy and simple. Are you with me so far? Good, because the next part is where most people get trapped and sometimes confused. If someone is fortunate enough, let's say, to have money just lying around due to a number of reasons, such as from their business or a job that pays them well and they've saved money, they've got equity from their own home, or they've won a lottery jackpot or an inheritance, or one of the many other reasons, then that is how they will make their entry, or if they want to make their entry into the world of property. So what they do is buy properties and use the money as a deposit and then hold on to said properties for a certain period of time. Over time, the property values go up, and this is mainly because the population is increasing while the supply of accommodation is limited, so the market has more demand than supply. You see, they don't always go up because it's a fluctuating market, but over a 20-year period, properties do increase in value significantly. Now, you'll be met with a lot of ups and downs. I can tell you all about that, by the way, and over a longer period, you're going to face a number of challenges. Therefore, people purchase a property and keep it for quite a while. The value and the rents go up, and they can refinance those properties and get extra cash and then use that cash to buy more properties. And the amount that you borrow will increase because the property value increases, and therefore you refinance up to 75% again. With that, you can then obviously go and buy more properties, as I said earlier. And that's how a property portfolio for most people takes shape over obviously an extended period. The downside is that it is time consuming and slow. So if you like time consuming and you like slow, this is for you. If you don't, then you need to look at a different strategy. Now, most people look to build their portfolio swiftly to substitute their income, and unfortunately this is an incredibly slow route if that's what you want to achieve. And if you're not fortunate enough to find stacks of cash hiding under your floor beds or behind your sofa, then how do you become a property investor? And even if you had money, by the way, you would eventually run out. This is where investment strategies come into their own. Now let's start with a fantastic property strategy which I like a lot, and that's called rent to rent. First, you must find yourself a landlord who's either having some bad luck or problems or challenges or issues or something going on where they're unable to rent their property, so they give it to you to rent out. And you go in there, you swoop in, you save the day by giving a guaranteed rent to that unlucky lad or lass. And you're going to pay them an amount which is less than what you could rent out the property for, because you need to make a margin, but in return you're giving them guaranteed rent, so they've got peace of mind. So you should end up at the end of the month making profit, which is the margin on what you charge the tenant less what you pay the landlord, and depending on how you divvy up the costs. And you even have the option of renting it out as an HMO, a house in multiple occupation, or rent to SA, which is rent to serviced accommodation. And that's going to improve your margins significantly. Now, why would the owner agree to this, I hear you say? Because he or she just wants a steady monthly income, obviously, and then they don't have that in the past because they've had troubles and difficulties, and that's why they're coming to you, or that's why you've gone to them. Could they make more profit if they decide to rent it out themselves? Probably, but so far if they've been unsuccessful, then they've not been too good at it, and they're going to give you the properties. And do they want to go through all of that hassle? Probably not, because they've gone through it before and it hasn't worked for them. So you're doing all the work for them, by the way, and make no mistake about that. In this particular scenario, you are not going to be earning a passive income, if that is at all possible anywhere, by the way. I think passive doesn't really exist. Nevertheless, this strategy will work in your favor if you do it properly. In fact, it's going to work very well based on the many clients that I have who do rent to rent. This is the entry point for many new property investors. For anyone who's interested in property, rent to rent is a wonderful option, and there's low barriers to entry compared to other forms of property investing in my view. But there may be an even better method. And what's that method, I hear you say? And that's a purchase lease option. Now, if you understood the concept of rent to rent, which I know you did because you were listening attentively, then purchase lease option is kind of similar in a very different way. So here you give a landlord a guaranteed rent each month, and obviously you're renting out their property and you're making a margin, so you've got positive cash flow, and that's the aim of the game. And the key difference in a purchase lease option to rent is that you have the right to buy that property at some point in the future, and for that you need to set a price when you rent the property, and the terms and the length of that option agreement, among many other things. And don't do this at home, and don't use a template for God's sake. Please go to a solicitor and get this done properly, because there's big money at stake. Now, as you continue to make profit over that particular period, and that's going to help you then to save some money and use those funds as a deposit to buy the property at some point in the future. It's a win-win situation, because the landlord gets rent, they get to sell the property, you make a profit, and then in the end you end up owning a property. What's not to like? And in case you set the agreement for the current market value, don't worry about it, as that can be discounted at some point in the future if the value rises. Now, the mechanism for working out the value of the property is decided in the option agreement, whether it's market value looked at that point, market value when you call on the option, or some other mechanism, but you need to make sure you've got clarity on that. But needless to say, this is a very powerful and scalable strategy. And here's the bonus. There is not a lot of competition out there in this particular area because it's complicated and most people can't comprehend how it works, generally speaking, and there aren't that many people who want to do purchase lease options. Therefore, most people don't kind of go into this particular avenue. So why not be someone who does? Vendor finance is another option for funding transactions without having to use your own money. And in a nutshell, to keep it really simple, you want to find an individual who's looking to sell a property, but their situation must go or should go something like this. They don't really need the money from the sale, but they want to sell the property and want to get their full asking price for some other reason. And they're not too keen to go down the option route. They need their name removed from the deeds. So you can and you should purchase the property if it works in line with your strategy. And you can use the equity in the property in several ways without the owner lending you the money. And to be clear, you can't do this with a conventional mortgage provider because they require you to provide some form of capital. And once you've gained some experience, you can then start working with specialist lenders and bridging companies to get finance. And when you get to that stage, obviously, different deals get offered to you based on your own knowledge, experience and expertise. And that kind of becomes a game changer, but you've got to earn your stripes to do that. And this particular strategy works really well for flips. So what you can do is, if the property is unencumbered, do a deal with the landlord to pay them at some point in the near future, but not as long as 5 years, as we said on the purchase lease option. You can do a joint venture with somebody else who's got some money but that doesn't have the time, and they give you the money. You then obviously buy the property, do all the work that's required, and then you share the profits with them in line with your agreement. And this happens quite often because you'll find people with money but they don't have enough time, and they can be found at networking events and other such places, and you just need to find some of them. And once you've successfully closed a deal, you show up, you bring the deal to your panel of investors, and then you put enough effort to create a good document to get them to invest in you and the deal, more you than the deal. Now they might invest the entire sum, or they might do some of it, so you might need sometimes 2 JV partners, and typically the split is 50-50. And it's a nice property strategy, and I'll go into it more in detail if you want me to. But for today, that's all I have for you. Check back next time for more sage recommendations.